Human rights are at the center of many legal conversations today. Students may ask, what are human rights? Or colleagues may ask, what can governments do? And what can they not do? In this lesson, you will learn simple vocabulary to describe human rights. You'll practice using can and cannot to explain rights and restrictions. This will help you give clear explanations of human rights in English. By the end of this lesson, you will use beginner-level vocabulary like dignity, freedom of speech, right to life, right to education, and equality. Practice using can and cannot to explain what people and governments are allowed to do or not allowed to do. And apply practical legal phrases like Universal Declaration of Human Rights and human rights violation to explain global legal concepts. Imagine this. Two law students are preparing for a seminar. One asks, what are basic human rights? The other replies, every person has dignity. People can speak freely. Governments cannot take life unfairly. Children can go to school. Every person can expect equality. They write a short list together. Right to life, freedom of speech, right to education, right to fair trial. And this story shows how we use simple vocabulary and grammar to explain human rights clearly. Human rights are the basic rights and freedoms that belong to every person. They are not given by a government. They exist because we are human. For example, human rights protect all people equally, in theory. Imagine a lawyer explains, human rights include life, liberty, and education. Governments must respect these rights. The idea of human rights is the foundation for all the rights we will learn today. Dignity means that every person deserves respect, no matter their age, gender, race, or background. For example, every person has dignity. Imagine a judge says, the law must protect the dignity of all citizens. This means the law must treat everyone fairly, without humiliation or discrimination. Dignity is at the heart of human rights law. Freedom of speech means people have the right to express their opinions without fear of punishment. For example, people can speak freely in public. Imagine a student gives a speech in a park. The government cannot punish them just for their ideas. Of course, freedom of speech has limits. People cannot use speech to cause violence or hate. But in general, this right is essential for democracy. The right to life means every person has the right to live, and governments cannot take life unfairly. For example, governments cannot take life without a fair reason. Imagine a lawyer explains, the right to life means the state must protect people against violence and must not use the death penalty unfairly. It is one of the most basic human rights, and most international treaties protect it. The right to education means every child has the right to learn, to attend school, and to receive training. For example, children can go to school as part of their rights. Imagine a child cannot be refused a place in school because of their race, gender, or family situation. A lawyer explains, education is a right, not a privilege. It helps people develop their dignity and opportunities. The right to fair trial means that anyone accused of a crime has the right to a fair and public hearing before an independent judge. For example, every person has the right to a fair trial. Imagine a person is accused of theft. They must have a lawyer. They must see the evidence, and the court must be neutral. This right protects people against unfair punishment. Equality means all people are treated the same, with the same rights and responsibilities under the law. For example, men and women have equality under the law. Imagine in a workplace, both men and women must receive equal pay for equal work. A lawyer explains, equality means no discrimination. Everyone is treated fairly by the law. Protection means the law must defend human rights from harm. For example, the law gives protection to human rights. Imagine a journalist faces threats for reporting the truth. The state must give protection so the journalist can continue their work. Protection ensures that rights are not just words, but are respected in practice. We use can to talk about rights and abilities, and cannot to talk about restrictions. For example, people can speak freely, freedom of speech. Children can go to school, right to education. Governments cannot take life unfairly, right to life. Use can when describing rights. Everyone can expect equality under the law. And use cannot when describing limits. A government cannot discriminate against people because of religion. Imagine a teacher explains to students, you can ask questions freely, but you cannot insult others. Rights always come with responsibilities. This makes the difference clear. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a UN document from 1948. It lists the basic rights and freedoms that belong to every person. For example, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted in 1948. Imagine a student asks, where do human rights come from? The lawyer replies, the UDHR explains them. It says, every person has rights to life, liberty, and security. This declaration is not binding like a treaty, but it is a global standard. Fundamental rights are the most important rights, such as life, dignity, and freedom. For example, the right to life is a fundamental right. Imagine a constitution says, every citizen has fundamental rights that cannot be removed. These rights are the foundation of the legal system and must be respected in every case. To protect rights means the government must actively defend people's rights. For example, governments must protect human rights. Imagine a journalist is threatened for their reporting. The state must act to protect the journalist's rights to life and freedom of speech. Protection shows that rights are not only written, but also enforced. To restrict rights means to limit rights in special circumstances. For example, rights can be restricted during emergencies. Imagine, during a pandemic, governments may restrict freedom of movement to protect health. Restrictions must be temporary, legal, and necessary. Lawyers often explain this balance between rights and restrictions. A human rights violation happens when a right is broken or ignored. For example, torture is a human rights violation. Imagine a prisoner is treated cruelly or denied a fair trial. Lawyers can say, this is a violation of their rights. This phrase is very common in reports, court cases, and international law discussions. Let's bring it all together. A law student is explaining human rights in class. She says, people can speak freely. Children can go to school. Governments cannot take life unfairly. Everyone has dignity and equality under the law. She adds, these rights are written in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They are called fundamental rights. Governments must protect these rights. If they are ignored, it is a human rights violation. This story uses today's vocabulary, human rights, dignity, freedom of speech, right to life, right to education, fair trial, equality, protection, and today's grammar, can and cannot, and today's phrases, UDHR, fundamental rights, restrict rights, and human rights violation. By the end, the student gives a simple but professional explanation of human rights in clear English. So let's review what you learned. You learned vocabulary for basic human rights, like we just talked about, life, education, equality, and dignity. We practiced grammar with can and cannot to explain rights and restrictions. We used legal phrases like UDHR, fundamental rights, protect rights, restrict rights, and human rights violation. And you heard a wrap-up story that explained rights in clear, simple sentences. Now you can talk about human rights at a beginner level, clearly, accurately, and professionally.